This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
It's crazy what's been happening recently to Tesla. You know, wish no ill will against those people, but what is crazy about these big businesses is sometimes they feel cold and, you know, disconnected, and it's all about the bottom line and less about the customer, less about even the employees. So, for example, in Tesla, I heard a story about how during these massive layoffs that they've been doing, people showed up carpooling with like 3 other coworkers. Those 3 other coworkers maybe had their job, and the one guy didn't. And so he had to call somebody, and they had to, family had to come out and pick him up from the Gigafactory, right? But it's big. They're doing their best what they got. But at the end of the day, it's more about numbers and maybe a little bit less about the end consumer. But that's not what you have going on there at Loveland Roofing at all, correct?
Yeah, that's right. We are a family business. I'm Jon Loveland. My dad and I own it, Mike Loveland. And even in our business, even though we've grown a lot over the years, we have like 4 other families as a part of the business. We have a father and 2 sons. We have another father and a son. We have 3 brothers that are all kind of huddled in this outer umbrella of the Loveland Roofing family.
That's really cool. So you grew up doing this.
I did, yeah. A little bit about the Loveland Roofing family is I have 2 other brothers, no sisters, so we're a family of 3 boys, and all 3 of us grew up roofing. We, the earliest memories I have of us roofing is my dad used to take us in our car seats in the truck, and we'd drive around town looking at roofs with him, and that was our tradition. He would take us to 7-Eleven, we'd get a Slurpee, and then he'd have me be his little navigator. Before cell phones were a thing or GPS, I'd break out the Thomas guide, and he'd send us around. I'd say, okay, turn right here, and we're going down, Roseville Parkway, and then 20 years later, so now I have a couple kids, I have a wife, and it's funny because he tells us now, he says, the whole reason I did that back then was to give your mom a break. We got 3 boys at home. They're running around breaking things all the time. I mean, he was working from sun up to sundown, and he couldn't go home and babysit, but what he could do was take his boys out on the roof with them, and it's a fun memory for me.
Wait, on the roof with them? Like, this has changed for me. It went from being car seat, like a protective environment, to being up on a roof. So when's the youngest you got on a roof?
Too early to remember. Probably 8, 6, maybe something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was envisioning like 2.
Yeah, maybe not a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
At least I hope not.
He doesn't need the ladder. Just catch him. We'll toss him up. Wow. So you got started early, and now you and your dad are running the business.
Yeah. Now we run it together. So me and my other brothers, we grew up roofing, and we grew with the company. We've done all the positions. We've been the roofer and the foreman and the inspector, and now my dad and I, it's kind of fun. He's passed on the torch, and he's kind of had this legacy he's created in 4 decades in the Sacramento area.
Wow! And
now we own it together, and we're buddies, and hopefully one day my son Jack can get a hammer in his hand.
What? You got a kid named Jack?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So my kid is technically John the 4th, right? But all 4 of us, thankfully, are still alive. So the OG Jon Jennings is still alive. He's in his mid to late 80s, and then my dad's the 2nd one, and then I'm the 3rd, and then Jack is the 4th. But I like to be called Johnny, and so I was like, well, I don't want to call the youngest. I don't want to call number 4 Johnny. We're just going to call him Jack. So turns out Jack was the nickname for John F. Kennedy.
Oh, there we go.
So that's kind of where I got it from. I was like, what's another nickname for Johnny? But that's wild. So is your son actual Jack, or is it Jackson?
It's actual Jack. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. How'd you come up with Jack?
I've always loved the name Jack, and I knew the same because my name's John, Jonathan, but I go by John. And I thought the same thing that some people call John's Jack. Yeah. And I wanted him to be named Jack, but I didn't want there to be any discrepancy. So
okay, so you're like all in on the Jack.
Yeah, all in.
There you go. That's awesome. But you mentioned that you were previously, as you were going through the different jobs involved in roofing, you mentioned inspections. Mm-hmm. And that seems like that would be a skill set in and of itself, is it not? Oh,
absolutely. Yeah, it's a huge deal to have someone inspect your roof that honestly knows what they're looking at. Yeah.
So how do you if I was a consumer, if I was looking to get a roof replaced or have work done on my roof, how would I be able to tell a good inspector from maybe a not so good inspector?
Yeah, I think the proof is in just what they find and how transparent they are with it. It's kind of hard because it's similar to a mechanic. You go to one mechanic, he might say, replace your whole engine. You go to another one, he might say, oh, you're fine, just get an oil change, And we try and break that mold with that 50-point inspection. We lay it all out, start to finish. We say, hey, here's your green area, your yellow area, and your red area. And there's actually one customer we had just a few months ago. His name was Jerry, over in Sun City, just over in Lincoln. And, he was an elderly man who was on a fixed income, and he had this recurring leak in his home for years, for like 5 or 6 years, and the leak kept coming back, and he called 4 or 5 roofers over those years. And
6 years?
Oh, yeah. It just kept, and the worst part is it would come sometimes during the winter, but not other times, and it was just driving him mad, and he was starting to really lose faith in the roofing industry in general.
Yeah, I would too.
It was sad. So then he called us, and to be honest, we have 42 years experience, and we've pretty much seen it all. And when there's just a strange scenario and a leak that just seems to be coming from nowhere, we break out the big guns. And this one, my dad, Mike, he actually went out on this inspection himself, the founder, and he met with the homeowner, Jerry. And, we did some intensive testing. We did some water tests, and we're trying to see how the water flows through the roof, because roofs aren't meant to be 100% waterproof, from top to bottom. It's you stick my house at the bottom of the ocean, it's going to leak at the roof,
Oh.
It's the roofs are meant to divert the water off of the roof into your gutters, into the dirt. So long story short, after a lot of detective work, we were able to find that the leak was actually coming from the gutter system not properly routing the water around the home as it should, and then it was shooting into this one area, but only on a really hard rainstorm. And so he couldn't see it 100% of the time, but then it would come up right when it makes him upset the most, So
the roofers had their tunnel vision on, and they were only looking at it from a roofing perspective, rather than, hey, it might be a gutter issue.
Yeah, it's a system. It's a full system, just like a car. If something breaks, it might not just be the engine, it could be the transmission, or it could be something else. Same thing with roofing. There's a lot of components to it, and it's not just that there's a hole in the roof. It could be, a collection of things that contribute.
That's an interesting point. So how do you train your guys to look beyond just the roof? Because if you go to, if you have knee pain, you can go to a surgeon. He's going to say, "I'll give you surgery." If you go to a therapist, they say, "Do this." If you go to a chiropractor, he'll, "Let me crack you." How do you train your guys to be excellent at investigating roofs?
Yeah. It helps a lot that we have an in-house training program with our roofers specifically. So all of our inspectors used to be roofers. So their experience of actually going and seeing damaged roofs and fixing those areas, then when they go to a new roof they haven't looked at before, they can see it pretty quickly, and they say, oh yeah, I just fixed this type of thing last year. That helps a lot. And then, to be honest, our 50 points, it's a real 50-item list, and we have black and white definitions of what is going to start to cause that leak and why. And to be honest, that just comes from the 42 years of experience that we learned where the line is, that in this scenario, it's not going to cause a leak, but in this one, it will.
So 42 years, about how many roofs do you think Loveland's done?
Oh, goodness. At least 20,000, I'd say.
20,000?
Yeah.
So do you drive through neighborhoods and go, I did that roof, I did that roof,
Especially my dad. But that's it's like the typical dad thing to do. He's like, oh, yep, I did that one back in 97, did that one back in 82.
Wow.
It's pretty funny.
That's cool. I mean, that's what Valerie does.
Yeah,
my wife, she drives through, I sold that house, I sold that house, I sold that house. Oh.
We even have it's really fun when we've had maybe a couple dozen customers do this, where, this sweet old lady will call us, and she'll bring out of her filing cabinet a very old paper, and she'll say, yeah, back in 1989, Mike came by and roofed our house, and it's been 30 years. The roof has reached its life, and I'd love for you to roof it again.
Wow.
And those are fun to see, because that's kind of the proof in the pudding a little bit.
Absolutely. How do you remember your roofer after 30 years? Remember him by name. Oh my gosh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So what other stories you got for us?
Yeah, one more that I can think of is this was just a few months ago, actually. We had a customer who he called maybe 2 or 3 roofers, and he had a very unique ask that he wanted the project. He had his dream house. It's just over in Roseville. He has his dream house, and he wanted to replace all the gutters and the leaf guards. But because of the style of his home, he had this very unique concrete tile type of house, and it's a nice house. And so because of that, the roofer and the gutter company would have had to remove basically the whole perimeter of the roof just to access it, and then install all these new items, and then put the roof back together in a way that it didn't damage it, because the roof's 20, 30 years old. And so he called a couple roofers, and they both told him, nope, this is just too big of a project. This isn't something we want to do. It's too much hassle, too much headache. Yeah. And that's not uncommon, to be honest. And then he calls us, and our inspector went out. Our inspector's name's Tavan, and he went through everything top to bottom with them. And he said, yeah, this is a very unique thing you're looking for, but we've been doing this for 4 decades. This is right in our wheelhouse, And to be frank with you, 20, 30 years ago, we might have passed it up because it is a big project that takes multiple crews, big machinery. But since we've grown over the time, and especially with our experience, we know what to expect when we get into it. Mm-hmm. And so we did. And so we had to get a few crews out there. We had to it was a couple-day job just to get this specific type of gutter system he was looking for. And we did it. We got it all fixed for him. We replaced everything for him. And now he's thrilled. Now he's got his dream home with his dream roof and his dream gutters, and he's really happy to put it in the rearview mirror.
There you go. Well, that's incredible. So I was actually on a appointment recently, and it hasn't hit the market yet, so I don't want to give up too much information, but is it terracotta? Terracotta is a typical red tile.
Yeah.
But this is like Spanish style, where it's like tile and then lumps of concrete.
Yeah.
Tile lumps of concrete. So I never thought about the different types of roofs that are out there that even a roofer wouldn't be willing to take on a job. What's Loveland's wheelhouse? What type of roofs do you do? Are there any roofs you don't do?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because there are a lot of types of roofs out there. In the greater Sacramento area, I'd say 99% of the roofs are either asphalt shingle or a concrete tile of some sort. That one that you just mentioned, it's a terracotta tile. It's technically a clay tile. I mean, that's what they've been using for centuries. You go to Spain, that's what they have on their roofs.
And missions and stuff.
Yeah, exactly, like a mission. And we do it all. We do all those things. I mean, there's pros and cons with each of them. But
it looks cool.
It does, yeah.
But I'm like, man, if you need to repair that, what's that going to cost?
Yeah, it's a little, it's a more expensive material because it's like a natural clay from the dirt,
Yeah.
And it is more labor intensive because it's not traditionally built. It's built with, cement and mortar, mm-hmm. As opposed to just nails and wood. So,
sure.
That's a great one.
So when somebody's looking at owning a home, or they've lived in a home for a while, and maybe they've gotten your 50-point inspection report, and there's red, yellow, green zones on there. How does somebody can you give anybody suggestions on how to maintain the roof? What are some best things to prolong the life of the roof, so that way they don't have to shell out $30,000 sooner than they need to?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, maintenance and prevention is the key. Really? I mean, it's just like owning a car where, if you never get an oil change, your engine's probably going to blow. But if you are good and consistent with your oil changes and your check-ins and your tune-ups, then you can really get a lot of life out of it. So I would recommend that you get your roof professionally inspected, and we do it for free, so it's no cost. But I recommend probably once a year is a good mark.
Really? That often?
It depends if you have a concrete tile home or an asphalt shingle roof. To be honest, me personally, I bought a home just a few years ago in Roseville, and it's 20, 25 years old, and it has a concrete tile roof. And I'm a roofer. When I bought the home, I inspected my own roof, and I had fixed a bunch of little maintenance things here and there because, tiles crack and break, and things just kind of need a little tune-up here and there.
Yeah.
And I did that. And then the next Christmas, I went up to put my Christmas lights on, and there's a bunch of newly broken tiles in just the last 12 months. And it's just, just the world we live in, that things break and wear apart. Concrete tile homes, they last a long time, but they do need maintenance every 1 or 2 years. Usually it's little things, but if you forget about those things and let it stretch out more and more, it's going to turn into bigger things.
You bring up a good point. So there was another house, where was I? In Ripon, if you know where that is. Ripon, first time I visited, I called it Ripon. They knew I was not from the area. But in Ripon, they had these trees. I can't remember the trees, but they dropped little balls. Mm-hmm. And the balls, when they drop, are really small. But as they get wet, they expand. And they had some major roofing issues because of these stinking trees. Mm-hmm. So you bring up a good point about the maintenance of a roof. So if they call you out, they go Google Loveland Roofing. They see your 500-plus reviews. They call you out for the free 50-point inspection. what's typical maintenance cost if they were to get it repaired?
Yeah, that's a great question. Asphalt shingle roofs last a long time and only need maintenance maybe every 5 years. That's kind of the trade-off. Concrete tile roofs usually last longer, but need maintenance every 2 years.
Okay.
That maintenance, it ranges. It could be as cheap as $300 or $400. But sometimes if you forget the maintenance and 5, 10, 15 years goes by and that starts to really pile up, it could be a few $1,000s in maintenance.
Oh, wow. Okay. But hey, it's better to address it than ignore it.
Exactly, yeah.
It's not going away.
It really just saves you money more than anything.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, hey, the last way that they can get a hold of you, just best way is go to Google and just type in Loveland Roofing.
Yep, just Google Loveland Roofing, check out our reviews, and give us a call. Happy to help.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny.
Well, guys, there is a reason why Johnny Jennings and the Made for More Living team are number one in all of Sacramento, why they have so many great Google reviews, why we trust them, and you should too. It's because they get more money for folks and in less time. No matter what kind of condition your home is in, Johnny Jennings would love to help you, maybe even get you an all-cash offer. Reach out to Johnny Jennings at madeformoreliving.com. That's madeformoreliving.com.